Welcome, everybody. I hope you have managed to have a break. And unfortunately, you are joined in our third and last session. So in the first session today, we have heard about the importance of healthy soil and challenges we face in maintaining it. Our second session provided insights into some successful projects and collaborations that aim to diversify food and non-food crop and the importance of protecting our forests. And now you are joining us in our third session of today's conference. And this session will be kicked off by Dr. Berit Norskog, research scientist at Norwegian Institute of Bioeconomy Research. Dr. Norskog is a plant pathologist with experience on epidemiology of fungicide and fungal pathogens in the field vegetables, project leader for Norwegian Agrometeorology Network, the Norwegian Decision Support System for Pests and Diseases, and the Nordic Baltic project Spotted. And are you with us now?
Hello, yes, I'm with you.
Yes, you are with us. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Please go ahead and share your slides.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this very interesting event. And let's see if I can make my sharing. Okay, can you see my slides?
Something is happening, so yes, we can.
Yes, okay. So I will talk about how to use a DSS system that we have developed in Norway and how that actually turns into quite a big element of an international and European platform, and then try to bring that down again to the field towards the end. So basically, the outline of my talk will be to present some of the experiences that we have from Norway and how that turns into an EU-wide DSS platform. So we started with VIPS that you can see on the left-hand side, which is a screenshot from the website that we present in Norway. And then the IPM decisions, which is an EU Horizon 2020 project ongoing now. And basically, I would like to start just explaining what we mean with decision support systems in agriculture. So if you go to Wikipedia, a decision support system is an information system that supports business or organizational decision-making activities. For agricultural pests and diseases, this represents tools that we can use in combination with integrated pest management strategies. So that could be most often biological models where you have input of weather data and also observations from fields and potentially other information from the crop. And you use that to understand when it's a time to do something in your field. Often that is the time when you should do a spraying, but it could also be whether you need to do other activities or other management strategies to prevent the pest or disease to cause too much problems in your crop. So where are we in terms of integrated pest management? The IPM strategies include a lot more than just DSS systems, but if you look at this triangle, like the preventive measures that you first have to deal with crop rotation, resistant varieties, good hygiene in the field and plants, and enhancement of natural enemies, everything that you do to avoid getting those problems. And then you move on to monitoring and forecasting systems. So you need to be sure that you have early detection so that you get out there in time. Decision support is essential in that, knowing when to do things, and when should you start scouting to avoid using too much time in your field when it's not necessary, and when it's very essential to go out more often. And also threshold values. Is it okay to see a few bugs, or how many can you actually see there before you should start doing something? And then after that, you would consider whether you can do something non-chemical, is there any mechanical methods, biological methods, or do you have to do something chemical? And then you would like it to be specific to the target organism. You want to avoid risk of resistant development, Maybe you can reduce the dose or target your sprays when possible. Maybe you don't even need to spray the whole field. All of these elements are things that you need to consider, and it's very much targeted at both the policies, what is available locally, what is the crop that you're dealing with, what are the pests, do you have multiple pests in your field, and how can you deal with all of these things at the same time. So a lot of decisions to make. And the systems, like a computer system, couldn't tell you like all of these decisions in one time. So you will need to have your advisor to help you, and you would take your experience, and all of these things will build on top of what the computer system can tell you. But we are with the decision support systems at the yellow part here with monitoring and forecasting systems. So bringing this back to Norway and the experience that we have here, we actually started back in 1957, where we had researchers that worked a lot with potato late blight and created a model to predict when is a high risk of potato late blight to cause problems in the potato fields. So you looked at that in combination with the weather and had a collaboration with the Meteorological Institute that would actually read out this as part of the weather forecasts on the public radio. And after that, it developed and we turned into a phone system where you can actually like enter things into the phone. And then from 2001, 20 years ago, we were online. And things have developed since then. When the system were big enough and our neighboring countries saw what we can deliver to the farms in Norway, they also requested an interest in actually to take part in this. And that proved a bit difficult with the technology we had then. So we had to actually redo everything. And we did a completely new technology platform with open source license in 2016. And that was an opening for international collaboration. So the background, and I'll get back to the international collaboration, but the background to how we do things in Norway is also very much rooting how things work within the system. So we have a lot of models that are developed for the Norwegian use and Norwegian need. And when we look at international collaboration, we say that it's the platform. And if somebody would like to use the models that we use in Norway, that is, of course, very much available, but it's not always maybe the climatic zones that would make this the best for them. So that's always something that needs to be considered. But it's an online forecast and information service targeted within the policies for integrated management of pest diseases and weeds. And we have a core funding from the Norwegian Ministry of Food and Agriculture. So it is actually part of the action plan for reduced risk by use of pesticides. That means that it's for Norwegian use, it's free, no login required. But we also use this in a way that says that if you are a member of the local advisory service, they would provide advice that would build on the information that you can find online. So you get even more out of it if you get that information in combination with what you can see online. All developments that we also do for the Norwegian use and the Norwegian platform on this is in collaboration with the advisory service and also some representatives from the farmers. So we know that we develop things in a way that actually the Norwegian farmers would like to see. So just an output, we have the website where we have a map of Norway with weather stations, and we have basically a traffic light signal that says that if something is red, you should be alert and you should check what it is and whether it's relevant for you. And if it's yellow, you should look into it, but if it's green, you can relax. And then you can select which crops you grow and how relevant that is, and then the system would sort for you what you need to look at. And if you're very interested, you can click further in and get a lot of details behind each model. So that is most commonly used by the advisors and also the researchers, but it is available to everybody. We also do observations. So there are traps in the fields where we can do observations to find out, okay, when is a pest starting to move into the fields, for instance, or when do you reach a decision threshold that you need to address. So we report that also online. And then it's very important to say that these reports need to be in compliance with what the farmers would like to see and what kind of information they would like to find, without feeling that they are compromised by information that they don't want to share. So it's always, in essence, in terms of which crops and what kind of information is put online on the public site. So if we move to like the basics of IPS, so we can see on this figure that there is computer models in the center. We need weather information and we need observations from the fields. Some models demand both, some only one of them. And then basically you get outputs. The website is the most commonly used, but you can also use a cell phone or you can get text alerts. And this is, as I mentioned, an open source technology platform. The flexibility of the platform means that it can be used for international use. And it is an open source license, so you can actually go to GitLab and find information there. And we are also registered as part of UN's Alliance of Digital Public Goods, which is quite something that we are quite proud of. So as an example of how it can be used for international collaboration, we have the Spotted project that we ended a year ago. It's a collaboration between Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and Lithuania. And the aim for this project was to look at different DSS models that exist out there, especially related to these countries, and see if we can make some common efforts to make models on leaf spot diseases in wheat and barley better and more shareable in terms of how they can be used in different countries. And what we saw in this project is definitely that joint efforts is a lot better than trying to do things by yourself, but also that there is a lot of variability both within which crops you have and varieties you grow and which species of leaf spots that you have in these fields. So we didn't find like one model that was way better than the others, but we had experience and built experience that said that, okay, there is at least a couple of models that we would like to continue with. And then each country or each region would need to go back and see which one fits best for us and our use. And this was a starting point as well, where like most of the partners in this project continued into the IPM Decisions project. And some of the testing here also continued into the IPM Decisions project. So this is an EU Horizon 2020 project where it was started June 2019. And the goal of this IPM Decisions is to create an online platform that's easy to use for the monitoring and management of pests. And basically we want to collect DSSs that are available through multiple systems, some private, some public, and make it easy to find. And then, like, if something has been made, it should be available to as many people as possible. Even if it doesn't fit like your specific region, you should be able to find it and consider it. So that's where we want to find like the most useful ones, both cross regions and also for local use, to make that available through this platform. And also to give access for using of these under local regional conditions. So where we are now is that it's a very early phase of a test setup for the platform. So it's not open for everybody to test yet, but we have started to look into it. And the DSSs of relevance have been collected. We have made a catalog of quite a few models. 17 of these are currently ready for use in the system under different levels of integration. Some of them are fully integrated. Some will be partly integrated, so you can get some information through the platform. And then you will be routed to the owner of the model where you can subscribe and get more details. And then some would link directly to external systems. That depends on how the model is built and what kind of level of information it gives. And some are very specific to specific areas or made to target a specific country, for instance. So to make this work, one of the big elements is to have weather data available. Because if you don't have locally relevant weather data into a DSS, you don't really have that value to how it works in your field. So we are working to find open and freely available data that can be used all over Europe, and at such as low grid size or like resolution in space as possible. So we are working with Met Norway. They are the meteorological institute that provide a lot of the work in this project, and they have a weather data API, which is also part of the UN's Digital Public Goods Alliance. And then we are looking at other European Met services that also provide free data and add to that so that we can specifically target like the most available local data that there is. On top of that, we also look at everything that is online available, machine readable data that can be used. And then that would be weather forecasts. We also need measured data from public networks and measured data from subscription or individual data sources that would be private weather stations, because there is quite a lot of private weather station networks out there that are targeted at agriculture and that would collect the data needed, because some of the models are very specific that they would need leaf wetness, for instance, that is very rarely measured at the public weather stations or weather networks. And of course, if we collect data and present that as part of this system or other systems, we always comply in line with the policies of the weather data providers. We never share anything that is not approved of. So if we move this and shift the headline back from local use until European platform, we can say that this is DSS is taken from a European platform and back down again to local use. So we can say that the international research collaboration is definitely essential to create new and approved tools for better implementation of integrated pest management. And definitely what we want to see is that when researchers develop models that are created, we don't want them to disappear into one company, or if that company makes it that it is available, easy to find, basically. And also that the models should be implemented and shared through a digital system. That means that it's easy for everybody to connect with their own data and different sources of data, so that can be very versatile use of the models. And also that the output can be shared through locally adapted services. It could be part of advisory services. It can be shared directly with the farmers. That depends on how things are used locally. And also whether you would like to go directly to the European platform, or if you wanted to implement this into a local service with local language and adaptations and added information on top of the outputs. So hopefully in a couple of years at least, this platform will be full scale and out there and ready for use and test, and yeah, can grow basically. So thank you, and I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Berit, very much. I'm amazed how much data you actually have to collect in order for DSSs to work, isn't it, and be up to date and provide the most relevant information. So the amounts of data is absolutely incredible. And how are you planning to keep it up? Because if you're creating a platform, it has to have a sustainability that is then used and the data is updated continuously.
Yeah, the idea here is that the platform is made in a way that we can call on data from other services. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to collect the data and store it, because that would take a lot of data service places or storage. So basically it should be that on demand you call for data that's available, and then it will be read there and then. And we call it the goldfish memory, then it forgets again, and next time you need it, you will have to call it again. So the goal is that we don't want to create like new databases on top of existing ones. We just want to use what's there and then tie things together. But of course, there is a need for maintenance, and there is a need for somebody to look after this, and that's part of the project, to find a very good way of doing that. So that's
and the
also
itself,
yeah, definitely some sustainability that needs to be addressed, and that should be ready by the end of the project time.
And I was kind of amazed about how closely you worked with the farmers from very beginning, isn't it? To make sure that what you produce is not only interesting to you, but is useful and what farmers need. What challenges have you faced in working in collaboration with farmers? Because co-creation, co-development, we've been talking from the beginning, it's very important, but maybe you have any reflections on challenges?
Well, I would say that some of the challenges is that we can't always meet what they really need. We just recently had a survey with the potato growers, where 60% of the growers that answered to that survey said that they used information from the Norwegian WIP system, either directly or that they were aware that information received from advisory services was based on it. And that's excellent numbers. But they also say that they need to know ahead of time whether they need to spray or not. And we can provide like 1 or 2 days ahead of time. But it's not sufficient if you need to start spraying before it starts raining and you have many fields. So some of them say that they would come back and then they would say that, okay, I chose to spray now because I had a feeling that that was necessary. And then they would check, is this really necessary? Or were my anticipation of the need true? And then they get a verification to whether that was correct or not. And the next time they would have an even better feeling to whether it's necessary or not. And by then they are indirectly using the system anyway, because they learn how things work and they understand the systems in the field. And no computer can compete with that. So as long as you can use this to educate people, whether you have the computer in the field or in the tractor, or whether you use that to train your own brain, it's the outcome that we're looking for.
And it is what you're saying is about making the farmers digital in the way. So it's obviously the countries and geographical diversity is quite different. So
yes.
So there's a bigger issues, isn't it? So there has to be a national policy to encourage adaptation of DSSs. It's about the training and information. It's about not giving up, isn't it? So if the potato farmer would have given up straight away, he would have not used the system again and learned by doing it.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, the policies are quite essential here, that it is an important part of the politics in Norway to say that you have to prove that you're using IPM and how you take your decisions. So it's also an element there that when they fill out their forms, they would say, okay, why did you choose to spray this time?
I see.
Yeah. But some of them, like, one challenge we see is that we have a network of weather stations, which on the map looks quite good, but there's quite a few farmers that say that, well, I live too far away, or even though it's like only 10K away, it's not representative to my farm. So that's something that we're working with, and some direct output that comes from IPM Decisions project that we can actually extend to that now and make it easier to add private weather stations or added value from the weather forecast that we can use as you would add that kind of information to, instead of using a weather stations that too far away. So you will get more information and a more local value to the weather forecast, especially for those who live too far away from the networks of the weather stations.
But this is, again, learning by doing. So you had the system first, you got the feedback, now you have a project to kind of improve on it.
Yes, definitely. So the more that we see that we get out into the world with this system, the more that we can actually feed back to the Norwegian farmers as well. And that's a great motivation to see that we can utilize this beyond borders, but also directly to the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just make a last comment that your IPM project, you're talking about the open sources in it, the data that can use it. So just to say, congratulations, this is along the lines with the Horizon Europe new policies and European Commission's kind of incentive to incentivize the open data and sharing of the project results. So, I mean, this is great. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And thank you, Berit, for your presentation. If you do have any questions for our presenters, please do post them in the chat box. And now, moving on with our today's theme, I would like to invite Dr. Roma Shamaishkine, the head of Plant Pathology and Protection Department and chief researcher too. Her interests are in cereal diseases, seed-borne diseases, and she's interested very much into the climate change. So, Roma,
yes,
over to you.
Try to connect. Have you seen?
We can see, yes, just make it full screen and you're ready to go.
Yeah, it is okay.
We can see it all. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Still sitting at the computer at this late time. And thank you, Berit, for good presentation and for our collaboration in the project. In my presentation, will talk more about integrated pest management, what is very close to decision support systems. And my first question, why we need to think about pest and its control? And here we have very clear answer, because annually more than 40% of global crop production are lost to pests. And from other side, we see increasing of pressure of some harmful organisms. We see emerging pests and diseases outbreaks when control become very complicated, and in intensive farming and also climate change, increased risk of pest diseases and weed occurrence in the field, and therefore, if we are afraid to lose production, we need to think what to do with this pest and how control it. And what is integrated pest management? Because we at recent times speak a lot about integrated pest management, and a lot, as you see in this slide, I found in literature that 67 definitions of integrated pest management were found in the literature. But main idea of integrated pest management is that minimize risk to human health, beneficial and non-target organisms and environment. And pesticide should be used only if are needed. It is, as in previous slide, what is mean IPM. I think all we know that it is what is mean integrated pest management, and because it is long history of integrated pest management. First, the term pest management came about the early 60s in United States, when was found first population of resistant to pesticides insect pests. The integrated pest management was used in agriculture and responsible to grow knowledge about negative side effects of pesticides. The integration of pest biology and cultural practices is controlling insect pests in crops. And a long time from early 60s till now, more and less came back to this integrated pest management, and especially big attention again was focused in when directive on sustainable use of pesticides was approved, and some directions, some guidelines was discussed, and was prepared national action plans, and more researchers, different projects was focused on, in different projects, scientists and advisors and farmers focus on this integrated pest management strategy. And was published a very important publication of experts on crop protection about 8 principles of integrated pest management. As you see, picture the same as in Beret's slide, but it is classical picture, and we see that it was identify 8 principles. It is prevention and suppression, monitoring, decision based on monitoring and thresholds, non-chemical methods, pesticide selection, reduced pesticide use, anti-resistant strategies, and evaluation. And as we see in picture, prevention, it is very important in integrated pest management. And of course, cultural practices, different physical, mechanical methods, biological control, and it is integrated pest. If we use integrated pest management, chemical control only, I want to repeat once more, only if needed, but no more. Prevention is the main focus, must be for integrated pest management. And as we understand that the recommendation for integrated pest management must be prepared very precisely and must be based on research results. And Beret in previous presentation talked about forecast and monitoring and other things. And we 2 days ago with colleagues from Latvia and Estonia discussed what in our Baltic countries, how we understand and what status we have on forecast of insect pests and diseases. Thank you for Birute Bankin and Mati Kupel for this discussion. And as we see, in all 3 countries are used decision-based monitoring. For decision is based on monitoring, on thresholds as we have in our countries, but it is not enough as we have threshold, need to more research on that. Decision based on multiplier criteria, local decision support systems we don't have in our countries, in Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, but we for some decision use adapted decision support system for our conditions, and it is very important that all models as came from other countries must be adapted to local conditions. And of course, scientists work on new solutions and that to improve management of pests and diseases. And you also see here a slide in the slide information from Lithuanian Advisory Service. They doing monitoring of pests and diseases in different places in Lithuania in the field, and and this information seen in the internet, and also they send information for farmers who want to know what situation in the field, maybe in the neighbor's field. But if we see some red or yellow spots in the map, it is means that time to go to the field and to check what situation in concrete field. And we, as I told in previously, that research it is focused on new ideas, but research project is very important for that, and we also share information what project was done in Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. And as you see, we grow projects to local project. It is mainly supported by Ministries of Agriculture. Regional projects, it is according to our understanding Spot IT. It is regional because it is Nordic Baltic countries was involved in this project, and of course international project as was presented today, IPM decision, and also RNet project, CIPM. That too important to have local data, not only transfer some information from other countries. Very well shows this slide. It is this slide is so important expert opinion was about importance of diseases and insect in different countries was discussed in the project IPM decisions, and we can see that sometimes in neighbors countries can be quite different situation on main targets. For example, transport, it is important in Denmark, but not important in Sweden. Yellow rust, not important in Lithuania and Finland at this moment, but very important in Denmark and Sweden and Norway. Of course, more far-off countries, can be different situation. For collaboration and sharing of information between scientists, between advisors and farmers, it is very important for integrated pest management. To have very clear and right decision. And our center and our scientists have very good collaboration with our neighbors, Lithuanian Advisory Service, and system of integrated pest protection information and consulting and training. It is in previous latest show maps. It is from ICMI's web page, and we are very proud that also participate in this system creation. And here it is farmers can find information with catalogs about different insect pests and weeds, about also information about integrated pest management, about also about some decision what must be done, and also product plant protection product in the system also available with information for separate targets. And project integrated pest management IPM decision, during IPM decision project, beginning of project was done some surveys. Farmers, advisors and scientists. I in this presentation will present only 2 or 3 answers on questions. And was interesting questions. Have you already used decision support system? And as we see, about half of respondents answer that they use decision support system, and quite a high percent of use decision support system in Lithuania, and we think that it is farmers who use ICMIS system, and in this system are registered more than 9,000 unique users, and we can understand that some advice from decision support system for farmers can be very useful. And it was question also, do you think that the use of decision support tool may improve your decision-making process and productivity? For that, yes, for sure, it was not a lot answers, but probably it is biggest part of farmers answer that it is probably this can be improved decision-making process and productivity. Of course, very important for farmers that you use some decision support system or confidence in efficacy of available tools, and important for planning of control programs. and that to understand about efficacy of different integrated pest management tools, it is sharing of knowledges of scientists and advisors with farmers very important. And also we discuss with colleagues from Latvia and Estonia and what they have for, what we all have for farmers, what information. And also we discuss that in all countries are catalogs of diseases, pests and weeds, the guidelines for integrated pest management. In Lithuania we have 20 for different crops, demo farms and seminars, field days on implementation of integrated pest management requirements. And we in all countries we don't have specific integrated pest management demo farms that to show all good ideas and maybe some mistakes, but a lot seminars, field days about IPM are organized in research institution, in advisors also organized, but it is mainly as one during GP project and other project. It is based knowledge transfer on different projects for farmers, advisors and farmers and researchers. And also we was question in surveys for farmers. Are you willing to pay in order to use the decision support system? It is very painful questions for farmers, of course, and yes, as we see, ready many farmers to pay, but of course, other question shows that it is will be very important what price will be for this decision support system, and of course, maybe it is important how will be correct recommendation of this decision support system for applying of plant protection product if will be needed. And future challenges for farmers and for using of integrated pest management, it is climate change, environment requirements, it is more strict, it is not easy for farmers to be quick with some requirements. Growing technology is changing and new guidance on plant protection products registration. Resistance, it is very important question of pest resistance of pest to pesticides and to pathogens and insect pests, and it is this problem. It is not in 5 countries. It is United Kingdom and Germany, but also in Lithuania we have as well. And lack of agronomists with practical knowledge, and of course political decisions sometimes also can be challenges. And I want to show that we see warmer autumn, long autumn, and a lot different insect pests in also grape, and these farmers need to think what to do, and they use insecticides in autumn that to control pest as was not need in earlier. It is challenge. It is question of climate change. What we need to do is that to avoid additional application of pesticides. As example here is the tillage system, what is mean, because we hear a lot about reduced tillage, about zero tillage, but from plant protection position, from integrated pest management can be that sometimes insect pests can occur very highly, and it can be outbreaks of pests and diseases. And here I want to show example from farmer fields that it was the saddle gall mite for occurred very much, but here it was grown wheat after wheat many years, and zero tillage was used, and this insect pest many years was after that in the soil and damaged wheat in this field. And I want to back in my last slide again to 8 principles of integrated pest management, that from the point of view of policymakers and program managers, the essential issue is to create the conditions that enable farmers to move along the IPM continuum over the long term. IPM, if understood as a dynamic application of principles to local situations rather than short-term single tactics, can generate the capacity to adapt and achieve the levels of resilience needed. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Roma. Yeah, I think so you just kind of highlighted what Berit was talking and the importance of DSSS being adapted to the local, regional, and kind of very small as well area to make sure they work. And just kind of the same and similar question, you mentioned that obviously you've done the research with Lithuanian farmers, and only 50% are using the technology, and at the same time only 1/3 is saying that I'm sure it helped making decisions. And I wonder what we can do, or what policymakers can do in order to increase that number to 60%. So it's not only 1/3, maybe 2/3 or 3/3 are using and saying, yes, it actually made a change. And can I just ask you to stop sharing the screen? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. It is okay? No. Mm-hmm. I think that for me, sometimes it's strange that when we speak about integrated pest management, it is we speak about penalties. That we will use some and we have some. No, they not use fully in the farm integrated pest management strategies, where we need to focus on crop rotation, on tillage, and on prevention, of course. But I think that maybe it is better to support people, find some possibilities to support, maybe in different ways. I can't to say now, but maybe it is need to discuss, was discussing about that, how to support that, to have much more integrated farmers who applied integrated pest management. And pesticide, it is not the main measure for pest control.
Yes, which you exactly just demonstrated with a worm that has been, and that ruined the wheat, isn't it?
Maybe also it is example about demo trials. We discussed with my colleagues from Latvia and Estonia that demo trials we saw in Germany. It is specific farms with integrated pest management technologies, and is organized for farmers field days, seminars that to show situation. But as told farmer, he gets some support for organizers this meetings for friends, for not only for farmers, but also that explain for near town people who want to understand that farmers not only use something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think so what Berit was saying, they work with the farmers very closely and have been doing that for a very long period of time. So I think it's about building the trust and about education. And again, goes back to this, what we've been talking today all day about the co-development of strategies together, rather than here you go, this is the system, you need to use it. Roma, thank you very much. Please put your questions for Roma in the chat. And now I would like to invite Dr. Antan Sronis, Senior Researcher at the Department of Plant Pathology and Protection, and he is going to share his knowledge on prevention and reduction of soil-borne diseases. Over to you.
Hello, do you see my slides?
We can see, yes. You just make it a full screen, that would be great.
Now it's better.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good afternoon. And thank you, Aurelia, for the introduction. And As it was already announced, the title of my presentation is Prevention and Reduction of Soil-Borne Pathogens. So, soil-borne pathogens are a real headache for the farmers because they can significantly reduce the yield. And in my presentation, I will give some short description about soil-borne pathogens. And later, I will introduce you with the Best for Soil project, where some useful tools were created and are currently available for the farmers, advisors, or students. And I will explain how these tools could be helpful to minimize the risk of the soil-borne pathogens. So what are the soil-borne pathogens? It is a group of microorganisms that can cause the reduction or limitation of crop yield. And most of these pathogens cannot be seen and are undetected until visible symptoms on the plants could be seen. Soil-borne pathogens include fungi, bacteria, nematodes, and viruses. And the first three groups are the most important ones, while viruses are less important, but still they do some harm on the crop. And here are some examples of soil-borne fungi. They can affect a wide range of crops. Some examples of crops like potato, oilseed rape crop, pea crop, which are more relevant for our growers. But of course, there are a lot of vegetable crops which could be affected by the soil-borne fungi as well. Important to note that in some cases, crops are being affected by the complex of diseases. And in this case, correct estimation and control methods of soil-borne pathogens becomes even more complicated. Survival and performance of most plant fungi pathogens essentially depends on temperature and moisture, or the presence of water in the surrounding environment. The spores of fungi dedicated for dissemination or overwintering. Therefore, spores can withstand a broader range of temperatures and moisture, especially low temperature in the winter time and high temperature or dry periods in the summertime. And to get a successful spore germination, favorable temperatures and moisture conditions are needed. Another important group of soil-borne pathogens are bacteria. Again, there is a number of harmful organisms who can affect some very economically important crops. Potato is a very good example because this crop could be affected by various pathogens. And how bacterial pathogens could be spread? Firstly, by water. It might be a runoff, rain splashes, or wind blown. Another way of dissemination could be by various species or insects or wild animals, but the biggest contribution to the increase or to the decrease of bacterial soil-borne pathogens could be done by humans. And here, appropriate cultural practices or handling of plants is very important. For instance, use of certificated seed, control of insect, installing a drainage system to prevent overwatering and many other measures. The pathogens could enter the plants through stomata, wounds or injuries, or after heavy rains when plant tissues are being soaked with water. Worldwide, there are more than 100 species which could affect agricultural crops. But in Europe, there are up to 30 to 40 of nematode species would be harmful to the crops. Nematodes as a soil-borne pathogens are less important in heavy soils, but in this type of soils could be found cyst nematodes of potato or beets, spiral or stem nematodes, but in sandy soils, nematodes are more abundant. And here could be found previously mentioned species and some other important species like root knot, root lesion nematodes, and others. And of course, an integrated nematode management can help to prevent or minimize the risk of nematodes to the crops. And it relies mainly on four main strategies. The first and the most easily adoptable is a prevention. It is a correct selection and planting material, weed control, sanitation. The second strategy might be inventory. It is a history of the fields, constant soil sampling and crop inspection, and if possible, at the farm level, to choose different soil types. Next strategy might be crop rotation, where crop sequence, crop varieties, and frequency of the crops is very important. Also, growing of green manures could help to minimize the risk of nematodes. Targeted control is anaerobic soil disinfestation, inundation or flooding, growing of catch crops, like previously mentioned, green manures, and use of nematicides or other organic amendments. Virus pathogen could infect the plants either through the activity of soil-borne vectors, mostly it is nematodes or fungal-like organisms, or by mechanical means. And usually this implies virus transmission to the underground parts of the plants. Some viruses can also be rescued from infected roots and transmitted abiotically. If leaves or other aerial parts were infected after the contact with the soil, this would also be named as soil-borne. And again, some examples could be beet necrotic yellow vein virus, the causal agent of rhizomania disease of sugar beet, tobacco rattle virus, or barley yellow mosaic virus. And control of this pathogen could be done by using IPM measures, control of insects or eradication of those plants. So why do soil-borne pathogens damage agricultural crops? The main reason is that the farmers tend to grow a single crop or just a few crops, and eventually a specific pathogen or a group of pathogens becomes dominant and biological system is completely out of balance. So the solution to that is to try to build back a diversity and by getting more plants in their crop rotation. Because every plant is different and they have different types of roots. Some roots go deep into the soil, some don't. Different plants and different roots attract broader range of microorganisms and especially beneficials. And what is the solution to this problem? So to do in opposite way to what was just mentioned. So to add more plants to crop rotation, including cover crops, build soil with more biological activity and diversity by using manure, compost, and biological amendments. So when we talk about healthy soil, there is a question might appear. So what are the characteristics of healthy soils? And healthy soils could be described by three properties: and biological, chemical, and physical. About some biological properties I have already mentioned it, where there is a need to get an extensive biodiversity, plentiful of beneficial organisms, and of course low pest pressure. Good chemical properties are when there is a pH level close to 7, optimal nutrient levels, no harmful chemicals. In some areas it might be relevant low level of salts. And physical properties include good tilth, porous surface structure, no subsoil layers, which could restrict growth of the roots, good capacities of aeration, water storage, and drainage. And if we are not sure whether our soils contain some pathogens or not, then it could be useful to perform a biotest. And of course, if there is an option, then the best way is to send the samples to the laboratory. And in this example, soil suitability for growing pea crop is being tested, where the soil samples on the left and on the right sides shows a high level of infestation with pathogen Aphanomyces certensis, which is a serious threat to the pea crop. So definitely pea crop is not recommended to grow in this field. And now I would like to present the Pest for Soil project and to explain how it could be useful to prevent soil-borne pathogens. In essence, there are many methods which are easily accessible for the farmers and could help them to keep the soil healthy. But very often the important information could be found in various literature sources like books, web pages, and so on. And very often this important information is in foreign language, and it becomes difficult to understand as well. So therefore, in 2018, the Best for Soil project was launched, and the main target of this project is to collect the most important information in one place, in this case a web page, and to make it available for the users by translating all the materials into the local language. And as you can see, scientists and agricultural advisors from 20 European countries are involved in this Best for Soil project, and they are partners or facilitators. So what kind of information tools are presented in the Best for Soil webpage? So the main information is divided into 4 main topics and 1 additional topic. And it is a compost, a cover crop, biosolarization, anaerobical soil disinfestation, and additional top crop rotation. Video tutorials. In total, there are 18 video tutorials, and by clicking on the icon, like in this example I chose, compost, all related videos will appear on the screen.
I'm really sorry. I think so something is in front of your camera. We can't see you. Now it's much better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Again, 19 different fact sheets are prepared, and they are not very long, just a few pages with the most important information. And some of them contains a list of reference or links to other sources, so where additional information could be found. Another tool is a database, which is divided into 2 groups. It is a pathogen and nematodes. And I would say, it is my opinion, that these 2 databases are the most interesting part in the Best for Soil webpage. And here you can find a very short introduction and explanation of how to use the database. The use of pathogen database is very simple. At the beginning, it is necessary to choose a language, then a country, soil type, to enter a field name. And from the given list, it is necessary to choose the crops which are going to be grown in crop rotation. There are 20 field crops, 29 vegetable crops, and 21 green manure crops. And by using arrows, it is possible to change the sequence in the rotation. And when it is necessary to choose a pathogen, which might be relevant to these crops. And in the list, there are 137 pathogens. It might be a challenge to select the right ones, but if a farmer doesn't know, so he can ask help for advisors, for instance. And my recommendation is to choose just a few pathogens, because otherwise it will be too difficult to understand the outputs of a database. And in this example, the crop rotation was winter wheat monoculture for 2 seasons, then winter oilseed rape, beans, and barley. And I selected 2 soil-borne pathogens which can negatively affect crop growth. Fusarium pathogen can cause a head blight, and database shows that wheat crop could be seriously affected if grown after wheat. It means that additional application by fungicides might be needed, for instance. Another pathogen is Sclerotinia sclerotiorum. This pathogen is more important for oilseed rape crop than for beans. But if the beans would be grown after oilseed rape, then there is a high risk of having this infection as well. So the solution is to go back and rearrange the crop sequence. Better choice could be to grow winter wheat after beans, then oilseed rape after it, and again winter wheat, and finally barley. So in this case, there is at least 1 year gap between susceptible crops. And nematode database might be useful as well. And in this example, the farmer grows beans, winter wheat, potatoes, barley, and some carrots. And let's say he decided to grow white mustards after barley and to get some more organic matter in the soil for the following crop. But as we see from the legend, but white mustard is a very good host plant for nematodes Protelenchus penetrans. The nematodes do not negatively affect the growth of the white mustards, but at the same time, this crop is very good for the propagation of a pathogen. So if the carrots or other susceptible crop would be grown in this field, so economical losses would be inevitable. So by willing to improve soil health, the result will be opposite. So again, it is advisable to go back and to choose another cover crop, and wise decision might be a red clover, because this crop can break the life cycle of this nematode. And so in healthy soil will be healthy crops. And I would like to mention that already 4 workshops were already organized, and many useful information was presented about the soil health issues. And currently these presentations are accessible either on the Best for Soil webpage or on the YouTube platform. So just type, let's say, Best for Soil in the search field of your YouTube platform, and you will get the presentation. And most of these presentations are being translated in the other languages to make it understandable for as much people as possible. So I highly recommend to visit our webpage of our project. So that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Antanas. So I think everybody will be rushing now to check out the website. So just to confirm, you said translated into many languages. So if our Lithuanian farmers would like to go on and check it, is the database translated?
Yes, correctly. Everything is in Lithuanian. All the video tutorials on the fact sheets and databases.
And how you mentioned 140 pathogens that are uploaded on the database. So because with the climate change, obviously, probably new pathogens are emerging. Are you updating database continuously to make it more current?
Yeah, I think yes, because this web page will be available not only during the duration of the project, but it will be available for the following 2 years after the project ends. And if the financial support will be found, maybe this project will be available for many more years. So. Yeah, but yes, you're right. So the information is constantly being updated in this web page.
I think it's a very useful tool as well for even experienced and less experienced farmers. And how do they know that they can use it? What communication tools you use to reach your audience?
Well, because in this project there are many people participate. They are partners or they are facilitators. For instance, I'm a facilitator. And if there is a small country like Lithuania, so we have to make to organize 7 seminars. Bigger countries, we have to organize 13 seminars, and so that's why we try to. And also the information on the Facebook, on the Twitter is also available.
Brilliant. I think what I'm going to do after today's conference, I'm going to check out my granddad's land and just to see what kind of soil pathogens are there and what we can grow a healthy crop. So thank you very much, Antanas. It was very insightful and useful. And now I would like to invite Dr. Romas Mažeika, Chief Scientist at Agrobiology Lab, who has a research interest in development of new organic mineral fertilizers, soil and environmental pollution problems, and pricing of various waste into fertilizers and fodder. So, Romas, over to you if you're ready to go.
Thank you, Aurelia, for my presenting for conference participants. and I try to connect.
Absolutely, that's absolutely fine. Take your time.
Yeah. Thank you for the organizers that give me possibility to take my presentation.
I'm just checking if you have received it.
Yes, I try to very briefly to go the presentation when I have some lack of time.
That's
we okay, it's you see.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, can I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. As a compost and digestate the future fertilizers is my presentation as some forecast for the future. It's not easy to do. Before that, is better to make short escorts to our past. We now living on the threat of epidemic COVID-19, but before 150 years, humanity lived on the threat of famine, and rate of diet was higher as nowadays. The progress in agriculture after 19th century make change this situation, and start increase yield of cereals, and the threat of famine to humanity was reduced to acceptable level. Over the last decade, some growing uses fertilizers start to decline for the ecological reason, and this trend may be continue for a long time. They use synthetic nitrogen fertilizers has made possible to feed a growing world population, and we should be grateful to the Germany chemist Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch for inviting the direct method of ammonia synthesis. But manufacture of nitrogen fertilizers use about 5% of world nature gas production, which equal to 1–2% world annual energy consumption. Also, some lack of resources, especially for the phosphoric rock. Some prognosis show that quantities for the after 20 years, it's a very serious lack of phosphoric rock. And if we speak about future challenges for the fertilizers industry, it's they are very seriously strict ecological requirements is some as zero pollutions and the lack of resources, nature gas for the production, nitrogen fertilizers, phosphor and potassium rock for the production phosphoric and potassium fertilizers. As consequence of that is increase fertilizers prices and decrease production capacity and supply. The processing of biodegradable waste into nutrients can be an alternative for the synthesis to the synthesis mineral fertilizers. And but nutrient concentration for the different waste materials is in the wide range, and NPK concentration, and most perspective for the nutrient recovering is raw materials as raw manure in which can use in digestion technologies and produce biogases and digestate as fertilizers, and another source is food waste, also biodegradable green waste, which can be used in the compost production. Composting and digesting is the best way for the bio-waste managing when there are cheap, cheap production possibilities with low investment cost, and they are good alternatives for the fertilizers, but have some disadvantage. Time consuming for the production of compost is necessary some 3 or 4 months. Requirements for space and others problems, and in generally produce low-cost products which are used for the local. Lithuanian has 10 regions waste management centers, which are the largest and best technical equipment compost producers, and they produce each year about more than 200,000 tons of compost. And it's some prognosis that in the future this amount will be grow, and quality also will improve. But for the use, compost is some luck tradition, and in Lithuania just begin to become popular among farmers, use compost and as they are convinced of its benefits. Now, European Union Regulation 2090/1009 for European Union fertilizing products. In this regulation are the main inorganic fertilizers, but also included another fertilizers products as organic mineral fertilizers, organic fertilizers, and soil improvements, and another groups, another functional groups. Compost and digestate are in two groups as soil improvements and as organic fertilizers, and has requirements, minimum requirements for organic carbon content and content nutrients, but concentration nutrients are 10 times less as comparing inorganic fertilizers. But they have another priorities. For the pollution requirements, they are also have some requirements which are necessary to fill, and is very important for the compost, for the searching sources for the composting, and for the production digest. Compost have some free benefits, free groups benefits, and most important, in my opinion, is change soil physical properties, as decreasing bulk density, increase total soil porosity and permeability, increase aggregate stability and decrease erosion, and increase infiltration and water holding capacity, which are very important in some changeable climate conditions. Also, change the soil chemical properties, increase concentration organic materials and nutrients, but as I said, some concentration nutrients, it's low, as this increasement is limited. And but compost changed positively pH and increase electrical conductivity and a special cation and change capacity, which also positive for the soil properties. Also very important soil biological properties, especially increase microbiological biomass and activities, increase microbiological diversity, as increase enzyme activities, and some phytostimulation, as mentioned Antanas Ronis in his presentation. They influenced very positive for the health of plants. If we compare Struvitz, if we compare some digestate, they also has the same benefits for the soil, but from the digestate is possible to make more products for the fertilizers who has a higher value and who can transport and more suitable for the using and for marketing, as production Struvit as very perspective fertilizers in the future. If we compare some different waste products and different technological possibilities to produce fertilizers products, we see some differences in the products price. As composting products are cheap, but they are for the local use. Digestate also in majority for the local use, but another products can be get some products which are more valuable and more usable as fertilizers. And some conclusion and forecast. Stricter ecological requirements and the lack of resources increase in mineral fertilizers price and decrease production capacity and supply, and as alternative is supplying from recovery nutrients from waste. Some improvements in waste recycling technologies will reduce the cost of fertilizing products, which are now maybe too high for the agriculture, but also increase the supply. Farmers will release the importance of soil improvement and use compost, and will produce compost for manure and on their farms, which are use farmers in Germany, in Austria, Österreich, and but in Lithuania some producing for the manure compost and digestate, it's not very popular. And necessary consistently balanced progress in quantity and quality of this fertilizing products. And thank you for the attention.
Thank you.
I hope I not use a lot of time.
That's okay. We're going to manage. So just very quickly before we move on to our last presentation. So are the compost and digestides the future fertilizers? Yes or no, or maybe?
I see some progress in this direction, and I hope each player has his advantage and disadvantage. And in the future will be a bright proposal for the fertilizers products. Some legislation so this older European Union requirements 2003 show us main fertilizers as inorganic fertilizers. Now we speak about fertilizing products and more groups of fertilizing products.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Could I just ask you to close, stop sharing your screen, or with an X at the top? Thank you. Thank you very much, Romy. And now it's our last session, and I'm inviting Dr. Skaidra Supranienė, Head of Microbiology Lab and Chief Researcher. Her research interests are identification of plant pathogens and investigation of factors influencing their occurrence, as well functional activity of soil microorganisms and the influence of different soil and crop management practices, which is very suited to what you're going to talk now. So Skaidra, over to you.
Okay, I try to share my presentation, but I cannot.
That's okay. Take your time. Don't share me. You can close. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try again. Okay. Okay. So yes, thank you very much for introduction. And as I would like to present the presentation about the role of microorganisms in soil quality, crop productivity, and the environment. As we know, soil covers almost the entire surface of the land and is a key element of the environment. And the soil performs many functions in the environment, such as environmental fermentation by shaping the local climate, relief of the earth surface, natural reservoir of water, and resources retention. Also ecological, because soil is an element of circulation of biogenic elements and organic matter retention. Edaphic function by creation of living conditions for microorganisms, plants, and animals. Protection function by counteracting changes in the environment by means of absorption properties. And also economic.
Can I just, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Would you be able to reshare your screen? I think so we can see your following slide and the comments.
Okay, okay. But
I wonder.
I don't know how to make.
Okay, let's just try again sharing, and we will start from where you stopped.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, we can see your slides. Yeah.
Is it better now?
It is better.
Okay, thank you very much. So, okay, I go further. So, and I was talking about economic function. When soil is a place of work for man as farmers, and also functions are affected by human farming. So the concept of soil health or soil quality has been of concern to soil scientists and agronomists for decades, and various attempts have been made to define the soil health and identify metrics and frameworks for quantify the health status of the soil. Soil health is represented by continuous capacity to function as a vital living system. The functions of healthy soil is understood like supporting high yield and crop quality, have good water infiltration and capacity to store water, retain the and recycle nutrients efficacy while supplying nutrients in correspondence with crop demand, store carbon and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, support diverse microorganisms and high biological activity. So soil quality plays an important role in protection of the environment, preserving biodiversity and good agricultural practices. Soil is an ecosystem capable of producing the resources necessary for the development of the living organism, and soil microbes play a vital role in almost all reactions and interactions occurring in soil, which support all the plants and consequently animal needs. Soil microorganisms, bacteria, fungi are responsible for biomass decomposition, bioorganic element circulation, which makes nutrient available for plants, recycling of the life supporting nutrients like carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus, which are critical for the formation of biomolecules, fixed atmospheric nitrogen by the processes of biological nitrogen fixation and ammonification by cycling of this fixed nitrogen, promotion of plant growth by increasing nutrient availability and production of growth hormones and antibiotics, prevention of plant disease by shielding the roots and suppressing the growth of pathogenic bacteria and pests, maintenance of soil structure by increasing its porosity, formation of soil aggregates, and increasing water infiltration, biodegradation of oils, pesticides, insecticides, and other toxic contaminants, also by production of secondary metabolites such as antibiotics, which has a great impact on plants, animals, and human development. Soil organisms are very important component of soil and are referred as biological engine of the earth, and therefore soil quality can be defined as a balance between high activity and high microbiological biodiversity. Since soil health is the major driving factor for sustainable agriculture, it has to be preserved, and cropping systems were initially designed to maximize yield from agrosystem, but modern agriculture has become increasingly concerned about the environmental sustainability of cropping system. Cropping system includes cropping diversification, crop rotation, and intercropping, and related agronomic practices used in agriculture impact soil health and quality from various spatial and temporal aspects. The goal of soil health maintenance is to ensure long-term stable high productivity and environmental sustainability of cropping systems under 5 essential function evaluation standards, namely nutrient recycling, water relations, biodiversity and habitat, filtering and buffering, and physical stability and support. The figure illustrates an example on how optimized cropping system increasing soil health relative to monoculture. If you see in monoculture, there is increase of soil-borne disease, soil erosion, and degrees on nutrient use efficacy, water use efficiency, biodiversity, and soil functional microorganisms. While in the diverse cropping system, we see opposite situation. The ability of a soil to suppress soil-borne plant pathogens is an important soil ecosystem function. Biotic soil properties, soil microbial biomass and activity, as well as soil microbial community composition and presence of suppressive compounds determine whether a soil is more conducive or suppressive to pathogens. Two types of disease suppression are usually distinguished, specific and general. Specific disease suppression is based on one-to-one antagonistic interaction by one or few specific microbes. General disease suppression acts against multiple pathogens and is the first buffer against soil-borne plant disease. Some practices can reduce pathogen survival or decrease the number of viable fungal propagators. For example, crop rotation is a practice known for centuries and associated with the reducing plant disease and pathogen population. Microorganisms quickly respond to changes in the soil ecosystem, and therefore they are excellent indicators of soil health. The use of inappropriate agrotechnology can influence the soil environment and those on the quantitative and qualitative composition of soil microorganisms. Therefore, it is extremely important to assess the diversity of and the microbiological activity of soil in relation to different agrotechnology. As an example, you see how tillage system can influence plant pathogens presence in the soil and the capacity of soil to suppress soil-borne pathogens and of course indirectly help in agriculture productivity. You can clearly see that pathogenic fungus, Fusarium graminearum, was this pathogen presence differ clearly between different years, between different soil sampling times, and between different cropping tillage systems. And the highest amounts of Fusarium graminearum DNA was found in no-tillage system. Soil fungistasis was very high in general in all soil sampled, reducing fungus growth about 80%, but influence by year tillage practices and soil sampling type we also obtain. 22 of more than 100 bacteria tested had moderate and only one strong inhibitory effect on growth graminearum in vitro, and this bacterium was identified as Bacillus amylophaciens. Another group of beneficial microbes are rhizobacter bacteria living in a symbiotic relationship with plant roots, converting atmospheric nitrogen into a form that legumes such as pea or others can use. These bacteria play an important role in crop production by helping to supply much of the nitrogen requirement of legumes and a portion of the nitrogen required by the crops that follow them. The amounts of nitrogen these bacteria fix depends on several factors. The specific legume crop, or sometimes even cultivar being grown, overall plant health, soil pH, temperature, nutrient supply, and etc. As a rule of thumb, the amount of plant available nitrogen in the soil must be low in order to maximize the biologically fixed nitrogen. Here you see also some our results, and we can clearly see the difference between different strains of Rhizomyum leguminosarum used for inoculation of pea seeds, and some of them increased very well grain yield and nitrogen content in grain. The application of plant-based organic manures has been shown to be an adequate strategy for increasing the level of organic matter in soil, with the benefits for the development of soil microorganisms and plants. Research studies have proved a significant amount of data on the use of green manure as fertilizer. Based on our experiments conducted in 2016 and 2017, soil microbial functional diversity, which is referred as average color development, I will call later AWCD, were affected by soil sampling time and plant-based manure application. In first vegetation season, AWCD level were highest when fermented biomass of red clover was used for fertilization. After 14 months after fertilization, we see that AWCD values were still higher compared to unfertilized control in plots fertilized by fermented pea and spring wheat biomass, composted red clover and straw biomass, and granulated cattle manures. This data also significantly correlated with rates of richness. Another organic fertilizer, biogas residues in the form of digestates, contain valuable nutrients and are therefore suitable as agricultural fertilizers. This formed the basis of our study to estimate the influence of organic fertilizers in the form of animal waste-based digestates in comparison to synthetic nitrogen fertilizer. And initial results are showing that soil microbial biomass carbon in the spring wheat grain yield were increased by these manures. So to conclude my presentation, I can say that soil microorganisms are significant indicators of soil health and fertility, and they are very important components of soil ecosystem, and we have to enhance their development and diversity. Application of organic approaches is sustainable and led to increase crop yield. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Kat, for your presentation. I think so it's really encompassed everything that we were talking about today, starting with the healthy soils, why it's important, finishing actually as well with the tiny microorganisms that help us to maintain those healthy soils. And just a very quick question before we conclude today's conference. Have you noticed in your research, does the climate change affect the microorganisms in the soil? And because obviously the soil is affected by environment, by mechanical like plowing and other instruments. So, but the climate change as well, what effect has it had?
Yes, of course, you are right.
It has had effect.
Yes, of course. Yes, sure. For sure.
So the moving towards zero pollution is a very important aim that we will try to do our bit as well.
We believe to this that of course to reach this zero pollution is probably very difficult, but we try to do that. We try to go to this direction.
Exactly, we need to move towards this direction. Thank you very much, Skaidra, for your presentation. Well, and that is it. Thank you all our specialists, scientists and researchers today who share their best practice, experience, new ideas, vision and collaborative projects which are leading to zero pollution. Thank you audience for listening and actively participating in the discussions. Zero pollution cannot be reached in isolation of one discipline. That was clear. It has to be collaborative and interdisciplinary effort involving a variety of stakeholders and scientists. We need a better education, understanding and more research. This event would have not been possible without the hardworking team behind. We would like to thank the organizing team, Dr. Vita Tilvikienė, Dr. Monika Vilkienė, Gintarė Naujokienė, and Davidas Jordanis. And now I would like to invite Gintaras Brazauskas to officially close the conference and ask all our participants and guests to turn their cameras on so we finally can see who we've been presenting today all day. And Gintaras, over to you.
Thank you, Aurelia. It's been a long, even though very exciting day, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. And even though the zero pollution was the main topic of this conference, climate change in general was dominating most of the talks in all three sessions on soil health, biodiversity, and reduction of input in agriculture. And it's understandable because two major challenges are ahead of us, that dual adaptation. First of all, adaptation to the changing climate, and then the measures to mitigate the climate change itself. And agriculture and forestry are two very important areas in this aspect. So once again, thank you for a perfect, wonderful, interesting presentations. Lots of new ideas. I guess lots of new networks to be built after this event. And the final thanks goes to you, Aurelia, for a perfect moderation of this event. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. And just before we go, if there's anybody who wants to say something, as I think so the participants are unmuted now, please raise your hand and go ahead. And we'll give you a few seconds. Okay, there's no final words. Well, then I will use this opportunity to promote interactive virtual exhibition experience that is happening from the 1st to the 4th of June, which is next week. Dr. Vita Tilvikienė and Dr. Monika Vilkienė will be at the virtual stand. So if you want to know more about the research that is taking place at the Lithuanian Research Centre for Agriculture and Forestry and other activities the researchers are doing, please do join this virtual stand next week.